Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Johnson, and this is the Perpetual Chess Podcast. On Perpetual Chess, I have weekly conversations with the chess world's best players, promoters, and educators about their lives, careers, current projects, and best practices. For more information, go to perpetualchesspod.com. Hello, everyone. So I have the distinct privilege of being here with Mr. Rex Sinquefield, prime benefactor of the St. Louis Chess Club, and, of course, the Sinquefield Cup. Mr. Sinquefield, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure, Ben. Thank you.
So the chess world, of course, is extremely excited with the Sinquefield Cup coming up. We were excited to begin with, and then the news came of Mr. Kasparov's pending return. So to the extent that you are willing to reveal your secrets, do you mind telling us a little bit about how this came to be?
Yeah, we were all sitting around having a lunch. I think it was myself and Joy, and I believe Mark was there, and a couple others, and we were talking about the Rapid and Blitz, and we had some wild cards, and Gary said, I'll be one of the wild cards. And so I thought about that for about a nanosecond and said, that's a good idea. You know?
Wow, that's amazing. So he volunteered.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been, I have to tell you, the history of this club, I've never seen anything like it in my life. When I was in private business, in the investment management business, starting Dimensional Fund Advisors, it seemed like one bad thing after another occurred for the first 2 or 3 years, as if there was an evil genius out there trying to destroy us. It's been just the opposite here. It's one good thing after another has happened to the club since 2009, since we've started. I mean, we've been incredibly fortunate, and we have a tremendous staff, people like Joy Bray and Mark and Tony Rich and all those people. Truly remarkable, but we would have never guessed that we would have become the largest membership club in the United States, never advertising for members. I mean, it was truly a case of we built it and they came.
Right. Well, I think a lot of the credit goes to you and your team, of course. I mean, you guys have invested so many resources and so much time in developing this beacon for chess. So to the extent that credit is doled, I mean, you may have had a few breaks, but I think a lot of it goes to hard work. So what was your vision for the chess club when you founded it?
Much more limited than what it has become. I thought it would be nice. I had a dinner in a restaurant across the street. It's no longer there, and was meeting with this young artist, ostensibly to talk about his art. Well, he brought his uncle, and his uncle brought his friends. It turns out that these were two of the powers that be in St. Louis chess circles. And so the conversation quickly switched to chess, and I said, yeah, I really have thought that it'd be nice to start a chess club here in St. Louis because we don't have one, something that, we could play, frequently and located close to where we are, so we're close to the inner city schools, so we can reach out to all of them. And they said, great, why don't we start looking for space? So the next day, started walking and we looked for space, and after a couple of days we saw this place and we realized this was just absolutely perfect, and we built it. And then shortly thereafter, as it was being built out, actually, I was having dinner with Randy Bauer on a totally unrelated matter. It had to do with financial economics of the city of St. Louis, because he works for a firm called Public Finance Management, PFM, and his expertise is the operation and finances of city and state governments. And but somehow he let slip that he was on the executive board of the U.S. Chess Federation. And so I said, well, that's interesting. We're building out a chess club just a couple blocks from here. Why don't you come and look at it? So we walked on over, and I said, one of my dreams is to sponsor a U.S. championship here. He said, well, they're looking for a sponsor. He said, call this person. We called him, and that was it. And so we've done it 9 years in a row now. So it's been one amazing, fortunate thing after another. And we've gotten surrounded by extremely strong players. We have grandmasters in here all the time. We now have Webster University, which has a whole bunch of strong GMs. St. Louis University, chosen as the best university chess club of the year by the U.S. Chess Federation. We have Lindenwood College with a chess team. So we've got an abundance of strong players, including grandmasters. In fact, it's quite possible that St. Louis has more grandmasters in residence than any other city in the world.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I know that you also have visiting grandmasters.
Rotating grandmasters all the time, every day. Right.
Yeah, it's incredible, and your YouTube channel is a treasure trove for those of us trying to improve in chess. Speaking of which, I was curious of how you initially got into chess. What sparked your interest in it?
Well, I was always interested and curious, and when I was being raised in the orphanage, I sometimes see scenes of chess in the movies, like in old westerns, and I was fascinated by just the shapes and the pieces and things, and said, gosh, I'd love to learn that, but nobody there knew how to play. So when I got out, my Uncle Fred, when I was 13, taught me how to play, and I beat him the second game, and I've always felt a little bit guilty about that. And so I just stayed with it, and in high school, the high school I went to here in St. Louis, Bishop DeBerg, I joined their chess club and was on their chess team, and I stayed with it, but I really didn't get into tournament chess until I got out of the University of Chicago Business School. Got my MBA there in 72. 73, I played my first tournament game and continued to do that through 85, at which point my children were old enough and I was traveling too much for business, that I realized I could not continue to play tournament chess because of the obligations playing at night or playing on the weekends. So I told the family, I said, look, I have to postpone this for about 15 or 20 years, but I do want to read you your Miranda rights. When this period is over, it is my intent to go back into tournament chess. Now, I haven't been totally successful at that. I probably played a total of 5 or 10 over-the-board tournament games in the last few years, and I'm starting to get harassed by everybody for being different, and justifiably harassed.
Right. Yeah, my kids are 4 and 1.5, so I can certainly relate to how tricky it is to escape to a tournament. But
you got the same issue. You're out of business for about 20 years now.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky enough to be able to sneak away about 4 or 5 times a year. I don't go away on weekends, but when there's a local tournament here in Pittsburgh, I'm able to just play the one-day event, and my wife is...
That's good. I'm going to try to do that here in St. Louis. I have no excuse because we have hundreds of tournaments here. Except I'm never in the city on the weekends. We have a country place 2.5 hours from here. My wife is usually there. And then we have our 2 oldest children live in Columbia, Missouri, which is 120 miles straight west. So those weekends, I always prefer to be one of those 2 places.
Okay. And so tournaments, we know, are a big investment of time, but do you manage, I know that you take some lessons, do you manage to practice online as well at all?
Oh, I've got lots of games online. Right now, I'm at a low point right now. I think I only have 10 or 12 games online in both chess.com and GameNut. But typically, I have closer to 15 or 20 going all the time.
That's great. And do you do the move a day or move per 3 day, or what's your preference?
Yeah, it's the daily chess. And once in a while, I'll play a 10-minute game. And once in a while, if I'm really in a masochistic mood, I'll do tactics.
Yeah, I heard you mention in an interview that you had met Mike Matheny, the manager of the Cardinals, and that he was into chess tactics. And you kind of suggested that they were kind of I don't know how to put this, but maybe you had a love-hate relationship with them.
Well, he said that he comes home from the ballpark every night, everybody's asleep, and he sits down and he does 20 minutes of tactics on chess.com. And he said, Rex, it really relaxes me. I said, Mike, you're weird. Tactics are not relaxing. They are stressful. It's the most stressful thing in chess. But my hat's off to him. He does it every day. And in fact, we, the club, have placed 2 beautiful chess tables and pieces in the St. Louis Cardinals clubhouse. And he said it's just wonderful. He says they've all gotten off their iPhones and the players just surround the chess tables and all they want to do is play before the ball game.
That's great. So
they're all incredibly competitive, not surprising.
Yeah, of course. So if chess tactics are the most stressful aspect of chess, what would you say is the least stressful?
Oh, I think the least stressful easily is learning a new opening because you get a lot of tangible accomplishments very quickly.
If you remember the lines.
Well, you will. It's easy enough to do for a decent chess player. I've switched repertoire quite a bit under Jennifer. I started off on the black side of D4 using Lev Albert's book, this 2-volume book, which I think is a fabulous book. And I started doing the Nimzo, and I just couldn't get it. It was just too many subtle variations by move 3 and 4. And she said, okay, let's try the Queen's Gambit Decline. So we tried that for a while. And then finally, this is about 9 months ago, she said, wait. She said, this is way too slow and too boring for you. Let's get serious. Let's go to the Grunfeld.
Nice. So you're a swashbuckling player?
Yeah. I said, Jennifer, I actually played this 30 years ago. And she says that I clearly seem to have a good sense for the Grunfeld. It's not easy, but I do seem to get it. And on the white side, I'm very comfortable with Ruy Lopez. I play it almost perfectly every line. Nearly, not all lines, but nearly every line. And I've done it I played that my whole career. And then against the Sicilian, I'll play the Grand Prix. And then against all the other black responses, I'm pretty well prepared.
Nice.
But it's fun to learn a new opening because it's easy, it's relaxing. You have a real sense of accomplishment,
But tactics a little bit more work. I can definitely relate to that.
It's more work, and it's so punishing because, like on chess.com, if you solve a puzzle, you get 7 or 8 points. If you miss one, you lose 15.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And and the clock is ticking. You have to solve them within a certain amount of time.
Right.
I understand for sure. So getting back to the upcoming Sinquefield Cup, and of course, Mr. Kasparov. So I don't know how much, once he volunteered, I don't know how much you got into the background, but our listeners will definitely be eager to hear as much about it as can be divulged. So do you think this is something he was planning for a while or totally spur of the moment?
That I don't know. He did play an exhibition match a year or two ago against Nigel Shorter.
Yeah.
And that attracted a lot of attention. And then I've played in 3 simul's against him. And the guy is so intense. Even when he comes up to my board, he has no recognition of who's there. He's just going to kill me, and that's all there is to it. He doesn't acknowledge you or anything. He just looks at the board, and when he moves, it's like throwing a punch. So he's never really given it up. He's obviously quite involved, and so this will be an exciting month for us, August, because we start with the Sinquefield Cup, which may once again be the strongest tournament of all time in chess history, as it was 2 years ago and 3 years ago. And then the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. And Rapid and Blitz, I think, is inherently really exciting for the worldwide fans because you get to see, several games in a day. I remember, it might be 15, 20 years ago, I went on the internet and there was a Kasparov-Karpov exhibition match, 4 games in New York. And at that time, you had to pay like $10 or $15 to watch it. It was over 2 weekends, I think, or maybe just Saturday and Sunday. But I watched it intently. It was so much fun.
Yeah. The chess world is definitely excited. One question I had for you is so many of us, the listeners and myself, are so appreciative of everything you do to help promote chess and to put on these fantastic events. So I was wondering, what we can do. Is there something that just the general fan can do to help you in your mission to promote chess?
Well, they can always donate money to the St. Louis Chess Club. We're always looking for it. And, we do help a lot of out-of-state people, too, and people around the world who need to get into chess, who need to travel, stuff like that, in the scholastic world. So if they ever want to donate, it's a very worthwhile cause. None of it's going to me. It's all going to scholastic chess.
Excellent. And do you have a vision for chess and scholastic chess? Do you have like a 5-year plan, or do you just sort of take things as they come up?
I think we take them as they come up. We just keep, everybody here, it's wonderful. We keep saying, what can we do better? What are we not doing that we should be doing? How do we make this perfect? And one of the areas that I think we've done the best job on, aside from the pure high quality of chess, is the production side and the broadcast side.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I tell people, and I say it sincerely, that we have physically the best broadcast product with all the cameras, and a lot of it is partly run by my son, who is a full-time in the full-time movie business, and he's doing well there. Set up a big studio in Columbia, Missouri. He got his degree from Brooks Institute, was the #1 graduate out there some years ago, and he said, I could kick around here in L.A. in the movie business and not get anywhere, or I could go to Columbia, Missouri and build the biggest studio Missouri has ever seen.
Right.
That's what he did. It was a brilliant move. And he's made like 4 movies. The next one's coming out soon. It's called Lost in America. It's about homeless teenagers in America. And he's got as his co-producers John Bon Jovi, Russell Simmons, Haley Bailey, and one other person. And, and they just wanted to be part of it. I think Bon Jovi's actually in the movie. But so he's been very, very successful there. And then our broadcast team, I say quite sincerely that we have the best broadcast team with Yasser Seirawan, Jennifer Shahadi, Maurice Ashley, and all of our other commentators. We have the best broadcast team of any sport on any TV station in the world.
Yes, I agree. I think they're outstanding, and I've heard good things. I've yet to make it for either a U.S. Championship or the Sinquefield Cup to St. Louis. But
you got to get down here. You'll be Mark and I's special guest.
Oh wow, nice! Rolling out the red carpet. Yeah, I mean, but I've heard amazing things. I mean, with like Ben Feingold and Eric Hansen and grandmasters like that sitting next door and analyzing the games in real time. That would be incredible to see. So as soon as I can offload these pesky children, I'm gonna make it down there for sure.
Oh yeah, try to come this year. I mean, Feingold, that guy's a stand-up comic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I used to live in the same building as him, and he's been a guest on this podcast. He is one of a kind.
Same building where? In what city?
In Brooklyn, actually. Little known chess trivia. Me, Jennifer Shahadi, and Ben Feingold all lived in the same building at one point in about the year 2000.
Oh my God! Well, more trivia in the world of investment management. Dimensional Fund Advisors' first office was at 48 Remsen Street in Brooklyn Heights. It was my partner's apartment. We converted several rooms to a trading room, et cetera, for DFA. Now we're up to about 1,300 people worldwide, but humble start there in Brooklyn Heights.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. Remsen Street is quite lovely these days. I'm not sure what it was like then.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. So getting to your background, this is a chess podcast, and I think people know in broad brushstrokes what it's where you made your start. But I did want to talk a little bit about the world of investing. So you were the sort of one of the godfathers of the efficient markets theory and founder of the one of the first index funds. Is that
That's true. I can say that I built and ran the first index funds in the galaxy. They started September 4th, 1973 at the then American National Bank of Chicago. And I was a product of the University of Chicago, of Gene Fama and the late, great Merton Miller, both Nobel laureates. And it was there that I learned the meaning of the idea that markets work. And it's a religion to me. Actually, I think it's a science, not a religion, because it's based on solid fact. But people who hold it with a religious fervor and encourage people to invest in accordance with its implications.
Yeah.
So we built Dimensional Fund Advisors all around the idea of holding, we call them fourth generation index funds, not the plain vanilla index fund like the S&P, which is the first one that I started, but things that have a little more torque, a little more exposure to different types of risk that are known to be compensated in the capital markets. There's a lot of risks you can take, but most of them do not get compensated, so why take them? But the financial theory and financial field has said there are some systematic risks that exist in the marketplace. It goes on to define what they are and how one can exploit them.
So in terms of compensated for risk, are you referring to sort of the risk premium of owning stocks versus owning other things? Or
Well, yeah, that's a very good example. The first risk premium that everyone talked about was they just call it the risk premium or the market risk premium. You hold stocks rather than treasury bills. It's known that the premium is about 7 percentage points a year, average return over 100 years. Other factors are if you hold a portfolio of distressed companies that goes by the misnomer of value companies or value stocks. These are stocks or companies whose market prices are very low relative to their book values. And that's because they've been doing a lousy job in the earnings dimension, and they're going to continue to do so. And everybody knows that. So the stocks are priced low to compensate for that kind of risk. And on average, those companies do, as a group, as a class, they deliver higher average returns than the S&P 500, several hundred basis points more. But you are taking additional risk, so there's no free lunch anywhere here. Another factor is known as the size factor. Small companies, on average, as a group, will outperform larger companies. And the feeling is, if you look at their degree of volatility, they're clearly far more variable than big companies. And so that's taken as symptomatic of the presence of risk, for which on average there is compensation, not as much as there is in the value effect. But the nice thing about these effects is they work worldwide. That's what is sort of the killer argument, that these things are real. You find them in one part of the world, then you go test them in an entirely out of sample part of the world, and you get the same result. And if you test them like the famous Fama French paper, 1992, the cross-section of expected returns, looking at different types of risk. They did that one looking at the U.S. market from 64 to about 92 at the time. And then later on, someone compiled a database and was able to take that test back 1926 through 1963. And they got the identical results. And I always tell people that those starting dates are important, 1926 and 1964, because in each of those years, the St. Louis Cardinals beat the New York Yankees in the series.
That's funny. Yeah, it's sort of like the I know that you're a Cardinals fan, but it's sort of like the old Super Bowl study of, I can't remember what it was, but, you know, in years where the AFC wins, the stock market outperforms or something like that. I mean, obviously it's
right.
Kind of ridiculous. But getting to baseball, I know you're a big fan. So are you looking for the Cardinals to make a trade?
Boy, you know, that's a tough one. That's always talked about here. We got a couple guys they could trade, but we're bringing up these kids from the minor leagues, and they're just hitting the cover off the ball. We brought up 4 kids recently, and they're all hitting over 300. One of them's hitting 444. He's got 30. He's got 16 hits and 29 at bats, and all singles. But so they've been so fortunate. The same with some of their pitchers. So I don't know that they really need to bring anybody up or trade anybody. Just need to teach these guys the basics. You know, stop getting run out of the inning on the bases. Bonehead plays like that.
It can be frustrating as a fan, for sure. Yeah,
but on paper, they have a very talented team. And most people agree they probably have the best starting staff in the National League.
I could quibble. I mean, I might put the Nationals first, but they're certainly they're strong.
Yeah, sure. They're very strong, too.
Yeah, but certainly looking better than my Phillies. So circling back to finance just for a second, because I mean, it's your field of expertise. You were preceded on this podcast. We're recording here on Tuesday the 18th, and an interview with Hikaru Nakamura has just come out. And Hikaru has taken quite a liking to trading options, and I think he's been doing pretty well at it recently. So I was curious, what advice would you or have you given to him about the trading business?
I told him not to do it.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Why?
Well, there's no evidence that these things are mispriced. Now, I can't comment on his record because I've never seen it, and I'm pretty sure there will never be an audited report of his performance record. This is the thing about investment companies. You know, they're very good at talking about their incredible performance, and they're very good about ignoring their failures.
Yes.
So there's always sort of an upward bias in their reporting. I can't say that's true for Hikaru because I just don't know. He's certainly a bright fellow. I will tell you this, he knows what he's doing. I give him credit for that. He knows all about options and futures. And it's a pretty technical field, and I think that if he ever decided to leave chess, he could go into the investment world and do very, very well. Although he might want to stop by somewhere and get an MBA first.
Yeah, it's tough to do part-time.
Yeah, it is.
So getting back to chess and talking about Hikaru and the upcoming competitors, I'm sure you've had a chance, in addition to meeting Kasparov and all the current competitors, you've had a chance to meet all of these chess-playing legends. So is there one in particular who stands out to you as particularly an interesting person or a memorable story?
There's a bunch of them. You know, we had an exhibition here about 4 or 5 years ago with Yasser Seirawan versus Anatoly Karpov. And Karpov turned out to be a delightful fellow. And, you know, there's the whole story about how he and Fischer did not have a match in 1975. But what I didn't know, and I'd read part of it, and I heard it from him firsthand, he and Fischer had negotiated 3 different times to have a match. And finally, they had agreed on everything. And I remember being in Indonesia in 1976, boarding a plane for Bali with my wife, who was working there at the time. And the English language newspapers said Fischer Karpov agreed to $10 million chess match. Now you got to understand, Indonesia is a country of chess nuts. It is literally, I'm not making this up, there's chess on every street corner in Indonesia. So if you're a chess aficionado, that's a wonderful place to get lost. And when I used to visit there, I would play chess every night with the gardener, and then my wife would bring in, you know, they bring in these hucksters from the hills, and So we'd be playing chess every night. I studied every day, and so when we're in Bali, going down there for 3 days of vacation. Naturally, I have to bring my chess books and my regular chess set and my pocket chess set. And my wife says, you could pay a little more attention to me. You know how wives are. At the end of the trip, we're sitting in the reception lounge at Denpasar Airport waiting to fly back to Jakarta. And there's a little curio shop, and there's 2 people in there. And I turn to my wife and I say, Jeannie, you're not going to like this, but that fellow on the left is Bobby Fischer. And she had several expletives deleted. And so I actually got to talk to him briefly. He was on the same flight going back to Jakarta. I also, of course, met Florencio Campomanes, who was flying with Fischer.
Okay.
And so that was a fascinating experience. Fischer was very impressive in person. So meeting Karpov was a delight. And when he was here, we asked him, said, Anatoly, is there anything you really want to do while you're in St. Louis? He goes, Rex, there's one thing I've always wanted to do my entire life. I said, please, what is it? He goes, I want to see the confluence of the Missouri and the Mississippi. So, I mean,
wow.
I was floored by that request, but we got a car and driver and took him up there, went over to the Illinois side up in Big Bluffs in Alton, Illinois, looking down, and Joy Bray said he was like a kid in a candy shop.
That's sorry, go ahead.
So many of these great players are such nice people. I mean, you're not going to meet a nicer guy than Levan Aronian, or a funnier one, or Vishy Anand. And Peter Svitler is a Russian who speaks the King's English.
Oh, yeah, we had him on. He speaks English better than I do.
He speaks English better than all of us.
Yeah.
And truly impressive. But all of these guys are delightful. Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So. They're all truly delightful people, fun to be with. We have occasions to go out with them some days for dinners after the games, and I'm amazed at how controlled they are emotionally. They don't get upset. They don't display anything. They're very well behaved. They're nice. They're a real credit to the whole profession, the whole chess world.
Yeah, they're true pros. So it sounds like you don't have too much of a rooting interest when these tournaments take place.
Well, I do have my favorites. I mean, I am biased toward those who are associated with St. Louis. I have to confess that. But, how could it be any other way?
Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't even mentioned the Olympiad. We're so grateful for the work you've done to help America put its best foot forward in the Olympiads.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that we just about have a deal wrapped up to take the Olympiad team and their coaches to the White House to meet the president.
Wow, incredible. I know that was a bit of a social media cause célèbre when they got back, but I hadn't heard anything about it for a while. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're working through Vice President Pence's office. I've gotten to know him pretty well, even before he was selected by Trump. In fact, we had an event for him at my house here in St. Louis when he was still running for governor of Indiana, and just 3 weeks ago, my wife and I went with a group and had dinner with him at his residence in D.C. He's truly a delightful fellow.
Does he have any interest in chess?
He does now.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. One step from the president's office. That's great. That's great to hear. Okay. Well, I know, Mr. Sinquefield, that you guys are busy preparing for this tournament and have a lot to do. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we let you go?
I think that we should tell the whole chess world that you need to come to St. Louis.
Yeah. I mean, you're not the first person to say that here, so I think it has credibility. I mean, I've heard incredible things. My friend Mike Klein, of course, who covers chess, he says just as a fan, you have to come.
Oh, yeah. Mike is wonderful. I play tennis with him when he's here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the last time we were on a team together, and we actually beat MVL and Ray Robson.
Nice. Excellent.
Who were both good players. And they just had a bad day. MVL had a bad day, and Klein's really a good, steady tennis player.
Yeah. He takes whatever he does seriously. So
yeah.
Even joking.
I would say to the whole chess world, come to St. Louis.
Excellent. Well,
the song says, meet me in St. Louis.
Excellent. Well, we will be there, Mr. Sinquefield. Thank you so much for everything you do for chess. So many of us are so appreciative and never get the chance to say thanks. So I'll put a link to the donation for the St. Louis chess page on the notes, and I will make a donation. And I really appreciate all you've done
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for this time.
Thanks for listening to Perpetual Chess. To hear more episodes, give feedback, or suggest guests, go to perpetualchesspod.com. If you like the show, please help me out by telling your friends and giving me a high rating on iTunes. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Perpetual Chess Podcast.